Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to The Innervoice with Dr. Foojan Zeine, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Innervoice program. This is Dr. Foojan Zeine. It is so nice to be with all of you. As you know, this show is about you. It's about everything that matters to you, and I speak with experts in the field of human sciences to bring you tools and skills that could help you in the everyday life and make a difference for you in your life. Today I'm very excited to have Dr. Mohammad Navab with me in the studio. Dr. Navab is trained at Columbia University in biochemistry and cardiology from 1970 to 1976. He returned to Iran and was a faculty and a chairman of nutritional biochemistry department, and later the head of clinical laboratories at Tolagani Medical Center at the National University. In 1983, he joined UCLA Cardiology and has served as a faculty and a co-project leader on an NIH-funded PPG since 1983 and a professor since 1995. He has delivered 171 national and international invited lectures and has 230 high-impact publications as documented by NIH Index PubMed. He received a UCLA Cardiology Faculty Award in 1997 by his staff. In 2005, he was cited as top 1% of authors of journals in life sciences. He was considered to be among the leading scientists of the world in 2006 and leading professionals of the world in International Biographical Center, Cambridge, England. He was the president of APSI, the Association of Professors and Scholars of Iranian Heritage, in 2000 and 2005. He has been a host of his own radio science program, BiAPSI, on KIRN 670 AM since 2007, and the organizer of Health Lectures UCLA since 2015. Welcome, Dr. Navab.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zeine, for this opportunity.
We've been on a lot of different television shows and radio programs together, and it's an honor to have you as my friend, as colleague, as a guest here. So I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited too.
I have always learned so much about you, from you, because you are, as I was talking from your bio, you're in the center of the latest research that comes. And although you're in the cardiology department, but I know your heart is also in human sciences, and you've always been there for everyone, your colleagues, and the society, from what it impacts, really what impacts the day-to-day living, and coming into terms in practical tools in how someone can utilize these practical tools in order to bring their body and their mind and their psyche together in order to create a fulfilled life.
A very interesting question. I got into research on cardiovascular system in 1983 at UCLA. Before that, in New York, Columbia University, we were looking at transport of hormones and vitamin A from liver to tissues, and learned a lot there. It was a very good experience, Columbia, with Goodman, incredible first mentor of mine. Past 35 years at UCLA has also been very interesting for me and enlightening in many ways. Again, another fantastic mentor of mine, Dr. Alan Fogelman. I learn from him every hour, every day. He's amazing. And as you mentioned, in addition to cardiology, particularly atherosclerosis, artery wall metabolism, seeing cell, tissue, organ, and the whole organism has been fascinating, and it keeps getting to be more interesting. So we call the whole body organism, and we have systems: cardiovascular system, central nervous system, digestive system, pulmonary system, etc. Within each system we have organ. Like in digestive system, we have stomach, intestine, liver, etc. Within the organ, we have tissues. In liver, we have all kinds of cells: Kupffer cells, hepatocytes, sinusoid cells, etc. Within the cell, as you recall, we have membrane around the cell. In the center, we have the nucleus, where it contains the DNA, chromosomes, the code of life. And then around the nucleus, you have all these neat structures, including power supply, power factory. That is, as I'm talking, I'm using energy. Mm-hmm. There are these little batteries called adenosine triphosphate, ATP, which when we use them, they become ADP. You lose a phosphate, from triphosphate become diphosphate. And these little power units in the cell around the nucleus keep recharging these batteries. So we have billions and trillions of them all over our body, and we are recharging them, regenerating them, and they help us do what we are doing. Some of it deliberate, some of it autonomous. Then when you get into the nucleus and the genes, so for centuries we have known there is some information in our cells. Darwin, Mendel, others contributed to our knowledge of genetic treasure that we have. And then by 2001, the results of many projects and billions of dollars by NIH and other institutions told us that we have 21,000 genes. Now, Watson and Crick in the 50s or 60s, I don't remember exactly, they got Nobel Prize for showing that the DNA is helical. And we have these segments on the chromosome, on our information code, that express themselves, tell the cell to make insulin, to make growth hormone, etc., etc. Expressing codon, short would be exon. A couple of percent of the entire thing, maybe 1%, 2%. The other 99%, for decades we said we don't know what they are. We just call them interon. That means between the exons. Mm-hmm. We found out that they produce little messages, 98,000 of them, called microRNA, that regulates those 20,000 genes. Mm-hmm. A few years later, they said we have long RNAs that don't make protein but regulate the other ones. So 98,000 long non-coding RNA. So we have a
lot of regulating systems.
It's gorgeous, Dr. Zeine. It's just gorgeous, fascinating. I used to call it a miracle.
Yeah.
And the day we were on that TV station, that show, she called it, I used to call it the masterpiece, masterpiece of creation. And the host, remember, she said, it's a miracle. And I said, yes, we are a miracle. Each of us, each cell in us is a miracle. So 10 trillion cells, in each of them 20,000 genes, and then these microRNAs I mentioned. As if this wasn't enough, a few years ago, we found out that we knew we have microbes in our body, viruses, algae. All I knew 60 years ago when I was reading about these things was that they make vitamin K in our intestine. And the other recommendation was that don't overdo on antibiotic because you kill the good bacteria in your body. That was all I knew about the bacteria in our body. We find out that there are 10 times more microbes in our body compared to our cells.
Wow.
For each cell, we have 10 microvirus, algae, and they are defending us. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for these good little organisms.
So
And
we're full of microbes and viruses.
we are. They are the king.
walking
We are
microbes.
exactly. We
Walking
are their
microbes and
niche.
viruses.
Right. We have been carrying them for 3 million years, and they're helping us fight with the bad microbe also, bad virus, bad chemicals, bad oncogenes.
So not only there's a world out there, there's really a world inside that is working as a
gorgeous.
system.
And absolutely. And we have 20,000 genes, Dr. Zeine. They have 3 million genes.
Wow.
Pharmaceutical companies now are making drugs to manipulate their genes, not our genes.
Oh, that's
They
interesting.
think so they say, like, we have 500 compounds circulating in our body, in our blood. 50% of them we make by our liver and our cells, of these 500. 30% we get from water, food, and air, things that are circulating now. 20% are made by those microbes,
Wow.
including those that affect our brain. We have this institution at UCLA called the Center for Neurobiology of Stress. One of our GI specialists, Dr. Emra Meyer, got $50 million from a nice donor, put together this Center for Neurobiology of Stress. And he was good enough to attract people from all divisions and departments, study from cardiology, GI, pulmonary, skin, arthritis experts, etc. And they're doing a great job.
So this new concept of listen to your gut, and there's something going on in your gut.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
being proven now.
Thank you. Half of those 100 trillion are in our intestine. That means 50 trillion microbes and algae and viruses are there, and they're working. So good nutrition, good exercise, movement, to have a good GI, good bowel movement, etc., is vital, absolutely vital, if for nothing, for our brain, for our eyes, for our skin, etc. So some people even say beyond the central nervous system, we have intelligence in our cells all over the body. It goes to the Indian and Chinese and Eastern Asian philosophy that, we have all these networks in our body are interacting, we have to take care of the whole body, etc., etc. So in relation to how to deal with these body, mind, soul, spirit, etc., etc., on one hand, you remember the Claude Bernard, French biologist, saying that says, in nature, there's no chemistry, no physics, no medicine, no engineering. We have put together these laws to do two things. Discover bodies, like the power unit in the cell, the nucleus, the DNA, and master phenomena.
Which is?
Be on top of the reactions. Master dementia. See what it is, what's causing it, how can we be on top of it, regulate it, discover bodies and master phenomena. And when you go to a scientific institution, a university now, you cannot tell what that lab is doing. 100 years ago, you could tell this is anatomy, this is physiology, this is histology, this is engineering. But now everybody is focusing on all levels, from organ to exactly to tissue to cell to subcellular organelles. For instance,
so it's not just the knowledge of one piece; it's also the relationship between the pieces.
Absolutely. Let me give you one example in confirmation of what you just said. In 1997, a gene was discovered by Japanese called endothelin. It constricts the blood vessel, which you don't want. You don't like it in the heart, in the brain, kidney. So everybody was excited. Now we're going to knock out this gene or turn it off and not have constriction, not have closure of the artery and heart attack or stroke. They made animals that didn't have this gene. Instead of the blood vessel dilating, it constricted more. So it was a big shock. They got the opposite effect. Right away we said, other compensatory factors came into the picture, made up for this interference of us in the genetics. So many pieces of work and investigations that had been done on the genes were negated, were questioned. And people started talking about systems biology, knowing the body as a whole. And you think of old days, they used to say, this patient goes to this gastroenterologist, he says, yeah, it's your liver, it's your stomach. Goes to pulmonologist, yeah, it's your lungs. The other one, cardiologist, oh, it's your heart. And they were all right, because they all are talking. They all are talking with the brain among themselves. We have this Dr. Middlecoff who loves these accesses. Anything you ask her, she says, brain, heart, kidney. Again, we said, Dr. Middlecoff, what about it? It says brain, heart, liver. All these accesses. They keep sending a message to each other, helping each other, working together, etc. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous. So people are trying to look at everything. Keep going from the top to bottom. That is from the whole organism to systems like cardiovascular system, GI system, etc., to tissue, cell, subcellular, and back and forth, inside, out, in, out. And one level, our chief of cardiology always was a brilliant guy, Jim Wise. He always brings the issue of community. United Nations has a nice description that health is not just being born, differentiating, growing up, becoming capable of defending our body against bacteria, virus, and then getting married, having family. They put emphasis on community. They say if you have all of that, but you're not in a good relation with others, you're not healthy.
Right. There's also this concept of we can become more and more healthy with our body. We can become more healthy with our relationships. Every day there's new information in how to become more healthy in our body, what to do with it. There's also this relationship with the external world with toxins, where we have no control over the environment that we're in, and we're consistently being also bombarded and adapt. Our body adapts, our psyche adapts to whatever is coming from also external world. So this also puts a lot of stress on the body, and there's so many more of the autoimmune diseases, illnesses that are coming up with a lot of younger people, even higher, a little bit with younger women. It seems like it's rising. Correct. So what can someone do in their daily life in order to calm down these stresses? Because obviously the stress puts
pressure on all systems.
Pressure on every system.
All systems. Well, you're the expert. We have learned from you, specialists. I go around, Dr. Zeine, and I say, for instance, about the Iranian community who emigrated here like 37 years ago. I always say, if it wasn't for these psychologists, psychiatrists, behavior scientists, we would be in deep trouble. Because these immigrations are huge shocks to the body and mind and soul and everything. And I myself, at age 73, I had the best parents, the best professors, best friends, best everything in life. I'm one of the happiest people on planet Earth, as you know. And yet, this past 37 years here in LA, and I had a great time in the 70s in New York, right? So loved it. But these past 37 years in Los Angeles, and after the shock and trauma of immigration and what happened to Iran, the revolution, listening to talk shows by our psychologists, and later on going to internet and asking questions from Wikipedia, from Google, what is soul, what is spirit, what is mind, what is ego, what is depression, etc., etc., I am becoming more and more fascinated, and I have to stop myself. Everybody, like, they invite me to talk about the cardiovascular system, the host comes and says, "We know you're interested in mind, but these people are here to hear about heart." I said, "Okay, I promise not to talk about that, although mind is everything." So you people have, I don't want to say it in your face and to you, but you guys have saved us. If it wasn't, you've heard me in some talks that I've said, if it wasn't for the clarification, knowledge that you people have provided for us as to who we are, what are we doing, etc., a touch on our subconscious. Although my wife is very sensitive. If I say word subconscious, she goes, "We don't even know about the conscious. Don't tell me about subconscious. Much too complex." So I agree. Okay, they're connected, and a lot of things come from subconscious. We're lucky if we perceive and understand conscious, let alone subconscious. I totally agree.
It's more like the DNA, where there's a 20,000 part of the conscious and then 90,000 of unconscious giving information. That's pretty much it.
Oh my God, I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
It is. You said it. Oh my God, that is the exon that they discovered 56 years ago that expresses the protein is really somewhat conscious, and that 90% that recently we found they make messages. Oh my God, thank you. This is gorgeous. This is great. I have to draw a diagram putting the mind, subconscious, and conscious next to the DNA. Very nice.
What we do, Dr. Navab, is we collect a lot of data constantly.
Yes.
And we can't operate only with that data, so we have to put it on automatic somewhere filing.
Big data.
And those big data has just become unconscious.
Yeah.
And then what we do is, we collect some parts of those consistently during the day to function.
Yes.
Like right now, I'm using some of the skills, and my consciousness is about this room and who you are, and who you are for me and who you can be for our listeners, and the knowledge that I can access at any time. But beyond that, there's so much more just kind of like sitting there to be tapped into at any time where there's a usage for it, right?
Yes.
So
in terms of what to do, when you walk into our NPI, Neuropsychiatric Institute, left, right, up, down, it says, relax your mind. 3 words. Relax your mind. Here, there. And Alan Watts, this lovely British philosopher, he uses nice analogies. One of them is that, like the muddy water, if you try to filter it, muddy water in a bowl, the filter will get clogged, and just leave it there. Come back and you see clear, shining water, and the dirt has settled. So do the same thing with your mind. Give it a break. And I read somewhere, even half an hour break during the busy day and stuff helps. So sometimes I'm amazed that people function despite all the pressure that is on their mind. They're not doing worse than this, because this poor guy, with all the noise that we allow to be active from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and the noise of worrying about the future and all that going on in the present.
And the media that gives us.
Oh my God. So it's amazing that we don't collapse, we don't get paralyzed. Fortunately, again, based on what you experts have taught us, is to not worry about the future, enjoy the good memories of the past. And one of the things I always say is that, look, in 1950 or 60 in Tehran or Shiraz, whatever I did was the best that I came up with then for there.
Right.
Very simple. Very simple. It's so unsmart that I said I should have done that. If I had done, that was then there. And what you people have brought up, which is mindfulness, is so helpful. That I today here, those 3 words, me today here, as opposed to if I had done that, or what's going to happen tomorrow, etc. So,
and what is the effect of that me today here and the calming of the mind then have to do with, obviously, your heart, your gut, the microbes, and
Absolutely.
how does that affect the body from your perspective?
In fact, that was one of the
science?
first things that I put together for today's talk. And for thousands of years or hundreds of years, we knew that stress puts pressure on the central nervous system, and that puts pressure on the organ, body. So British scientists and American scientists put together a study done at Harvard, 400 people experimental, 400 people controlled, and they exposed them to stress. And they did functional MRI on this region of the brain called amygdala, which is next to hypothalamus, and see what happens. So they clearly saw when they put stress on people, the amygdala becomes more active, sends messages to the bone marrow. Bone marrow makes white blood cells that produce molecules that we call them pro-inflammatory molecules. They're called interleukin 6, C-reactive protein from the liver, etc. These molecules defend, change the blood pressure, change the artery wall behavior. Up to a point, they are beneficial and regulate things and optimize things. Beyond a certain point, they become detrimental and hurt the artery wall, the heart, the cells, tissues, etc. So they were happy to report this, that yes, it's this center, amygdala, in the brain, very small center, that receives the stress, receives the sensation of pressure, sends message to the bone marrow. Bone marrow makes activates these white blood cells that put out these molecules, these substances that go around the body and prepare us for doing better with the stress, with the pressure, etc. And optimize things. So we're doing it constantly, depending on what intensity pressure and what length of pressure. That's one of the areas. There's another area called post-traumatic stress disorder. One of our cardiologists, Dr. Ramin Ibrahimi, which I would write to you, you can invite him. He's a fantastic speaker and a very good cardiologist and good professor, etc. He recently gave a great grand rounds for the Department of Medicine, and he was going through PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Mild one, heavy one, and very clearly they showed that, for instance, when there was Northridge earthquake, 5 times more heart attacks that day. There are 2 other earthquakes he reported on, one in Japan, one in China, again, increased all kinds of symptoms in the heart. One very interesting study was twins, identical twins. Those who went to combat had 4 times more cardiovascular disease than those who stayed here, etc. So veterans who've come from Afghanistan, from Iraq, you remember some years ago they kept talking about Gulf. Veterans had all kinds of complications, etc. Mental, physical, cardiovascular, etc. Our cells, whether it's cardiac, liver, intestine, stomach, whole organs, even arthritis, asthma. Asthma is a whole chapter in terms of being intensified, amplified by stress. Skin clearly shows that the organism is under pressure everywhere in the whole organism, and gets into a vicious cycle.
And the vicious cycle is also that not only the psyche affects the body, but the body that is not taken care of also, in the same token, has a relationship which affects the psyche.
Absolutely.
Where when your body is not functioning accurately, then the level of your anxiety is higher, the level of depression is higher. It changes your mood completely, and we see that in thyroid, we see that in hormones, we see that in many, many different levels.
In this 50 years that I've been dealing with cell and tissue and organs, etc., these past few years I've been shaken by the complexity of our organism and cell and tissue, etc. And Fortunately, Dr. Zeine, what's happening is that top surgeons, specialists, scientists, past 15 years, having seen that you have to look at the whole systems biology, are going more and more toward lifestyle, smart lifestyle. They keep saying smart lifestyle. There's this gentleman called Dean Ornish, professor of medicine at UCSF. And you know, UCSF has surpassed Harvard and Yale and all Eastern. Those two, Stanford and UCSF, are doing very well, getting all the Nobel Prizes. So Dean Ornish is a professor of medicine at UCSF. And past 2 decades, he has been focusing on improving the modern medicine. We say at the same time that modern medicine has doubled the life expectancy from 42 to 85 as a result of good drugs like insulin, antibiotics, cholesterol-lowering drug, ether for surgery, etc., etc. A lot of drugs for the mental illnesses, etc. At the same time, unfortunately, we had this trend, this approach, this wrong view, maybe in the mid-20th century, that people, specialists, medical specialists, surgeons, etc., ignored the connection between various organs and the body and mind and soul, etc. So they became too much of a technology-oriented, etc., etc. Now they are, after seeing that you have to look at the whole system, you cannot ignore mind and soul and spirit and all the mental issues, central nervous system that is running us, running every cell. Now they're putting the emphasis on smart lifestyle. This Dean Ornish, he's so good. UCLA has given him a big office. A big unit is called Dean Ornish program. He came here and gave a grand rounds with 200 of his patients present who have gone off their medications by following smart lifestyle.
Nice.
These were people who had heart surgery, etc., etc. And they're doing very well. So
what is this smart?
He shows this slide that there's a faucet running, water spilling, and the surgeons and specialists are mopping the floor as opposed to closing the faucet. And he says 95%, at least 95% of the disorders, be it heart, diabetes, arthritis, cancer, etc., are treatable with smart lifestyle. And on top is mind management. Because when you think well, when you regulate your emotions, feelings, your mind, and your outputs, your behavior, then you eat well, you take good care of your body, exercise, you sleep well, you don't smoke, and you have good relations, etc., etc. And that fixes everything. So I put together a lot of quotes from him that you have heard and you know about them. It's just beautiful how you can be successful in regulating, as you mentioned, all the pressure that arrives at us, mental and physical, all the toxins in the air. I remember when I was a student at New York in the 70s, Dr. Osler was telling us, at that time, 1970, that we have 50,000 chemicals in air, water, food.
Right.
50,000 then. And FDA has been only able to look at 7,000 of them, calling them generally recognized as safe, GRAS, GRAS. The other 43,000.
Oh, well.
And that has increased tremendously. Definitely, there's much more than 50,000 chemicals in water.
And it seems like we adapt. However, the adaptation still creates a lot more illnesses. And,
amazing.
Yeah, with rising the age, plus all of these toxins, it seems like there's a lot more ailment in some form.
Absolutely. That is those 20,000. The genes that make the proteins, those are medications. Those 20,000 proteins are drugs, are substances that are regulating us. And then you have the other ones that regulate them. I mentioned the ones that are microbial. So
but
yes,
if we're overwhelming them, it's just they can't do their job. It seems like if we, with the lifestyle you're talking about, as as we sleep appropriately, so we could detox our body and we could regulate it, as we eat appropriately and healthy, and we don't overwhelm the physical aspect of the body, then the body can restore itself, because it does have the mechanism to restore itself.
Absolutely. And I hear and read here and there that body may be more capable of adapting and surviving than mind and soul and spirit. They say we have to be nicer to our mind and psyche, spirit, our mental being, because it's more delicate and there's more pressure on it. So we have to be nice on it and help our body to help our mind, and help our mind and vice versa, etc., etc. And again, you people keep putting out recipes to do that. The other day I went to internet, just wanted to see what's a good description of philosophy. I said philosophy in the Google, and so then it comes to Dalai Lama, and Dalai Lama said, I only have one philosophy, kindness. I was like, what? I mean, that big man, he's the best and most interesting living man, Dalai Lama. And he says, I only have one philosophy, kindness. He sees the need for that emphasis.
And it's for him and for many people, it's an encompassing concept. Like when somebody says love, they put a lot of different things in the umbrella of the kindness, because you have to have a positive and a caring mind in order to be kind. You have to have a loving heart in order to be kind. So it encompasses, and you have to act in a loving way toward yourself and the world in order to be kind.
It's only smart.
Yeah.
I used to be tough on people who wouldn't be perfect at times, no spelling or pronunciation or expression of this and that. Then I came across a statement that said, it's better to be kind than absolutely correct. So, why not? Well, you're right. Everyone is under pressure. Don't be so picky.
Well, you have definitely taken that on, because my experience of you anywhere in these years that I've known you is just kindness toward humanity, toward anyone that you come across out. Yeah.
It's only smart, because I need your kindness
back.
I'm going to be in trouble at some point for some reason. So I need everybody's kind of. I use this analogy. I say, if I give my shoulder for you to go off, you'll pull me up.
Yeah.
You'll pull me up in the future. You'll pull my children up. But if I pull your leg while you're going up, you're going to hit me.
Exactly.
Very simple. Very simple. Why not? And the expression in Farsi we have that 1,000 friends is not enough. One enemy is too much.
Yeah.
That's so simple. Or once my chairman asked me, I've given you so much power. Why don't you use it? What is this? I said, Alan, I'm coming from a culture that says, the whole world is not worth hurting one heart. He said, what? I said, yeah, the whole world. Don't hurt others. I remember in that TV show we were together, the final saying by the host was that, don't get hurt and don't hurt.
Yeah.
She kept saying that, don't get hurt, don't hurt.
Yeah. The part that you were saying also, I think it resonates with what you said also about the lifestyle, the smart lifestyle also for the mind. Like even the same way we put our body into sleep, 6 to 8 hours of sleep in order for it to rejuvenate itself, we also need to put our mind in during the day into spaces where, even if it's not the word sleeping, but it rests, that it releases itself out of all the input that it's coming in order to settle.
Right.
So those times of meditation or coming together or mindfulness, those are times that is as if we're putting our body to sleep. We're also putting our mind into a zone where it can integrate whatever comes up, so it can be as part of the regulating of that organ, regulating emotions, regulating all the thoughts that are coming, which half of them are hallucinatory for us anyway. Even the ones that are very healthy are not schizophrenic. Most of their thoughts are hallucinatory. And to recognize what is a factual thought, what is it that it's a neurosis, what is it that is, I'm hallucinating at this point, coming up with stories that have no basis at all, and getting myself upset and the rest of the world. And what to do with the data that comes from outside, whether it's from the media or it's the government or, a friend or a coworker or any type of the data that keeps coming at us in order for us to do something about. And that type of a regulation of the mind and the body, then it keeps us healthy because internally we do have the mechanism to restore our body if we also take care of it. It's just that we don't. Most of us, we take it for granted, I think, until we lose something.
That taking for granted. In relation to giving a break to the mind and soul and spirit, etc., some years ago, my family gave me this little book. It said, The Art of Doing Nothing, once in a while. And then I came across this saying by Bertrand Russell, who's one of the top philosophers of our time. He says, the time that you have spent and you have enjoyed it, you have not wasted it. Not be paranoid about doing something every minute, every hour. It says, if you have enjoyed it, no matter what you've done, you have not wasted it. You have given a break to your mind, soul, and that has helped the whole system, etc. So, yes, absolutely. And sleep that you mentioned, diabetologists, people in diabetes field, are putting a lot of emphasis on it. They say, don't be macho. I only get 4 hours of sleep and I'm fine. No, 7 hours of sleep not only is good for the body, it's fantastic for the mind. It's a great meditation.
Yes.
Forgetting about all the pressure and everything that's going on around us, shutting it off, turning it off is necessary. Or, for instance, that Dean Ornish that I mentioned, his final slide is this. At the bottom, he has gene therapy, transplant, immunotherapy. On top, Dr. Zeine, it says fun.
Yes.
He puts fun above gene therapy, molecular biology, etc. Like, for instance, Nietzsche. Yeah. In Iran, I remember we used to say, the pessimistic German philosopher Nietzsche. All of you said the pessimistic. He says, life without music is a mistake. I said, what? Mistake? That's gorgeous. Life without music is a mistake. Or the big neurologist. We had this guy called, I forget his name now. He wrote the book Musicophilia, Oliver Sacks. He studied medicine at UCSD, came to UCLA and did neurology. When he was here, he was the member of the Gold Gym in Venice. He had his Harley Davidson, and he would put his patients in the back illegally, take them to top of Topanga, and say they feel much better.
Yeah, it's play. You play. There's a whole different chemicals that pours in and just allows you to enjoy. Yeah,
absolutely. University of Dallas has a laughter room. People have to go there and laugh for 15 minutes and come back, etc. And Oliver Sacks goes to New York, neuropsychiatric department of Columbia University, writes this big book on musicophilia. He came back to LA some 10 years ago at 85 at Royce Hall, packed, sold out. And for 2 hours, this 85-year-old man went through music and mind, etc., etc. And at the end, he says, only 0.1% of people are tune deaf, meaning don't say I don't have talent for music. And at the end, he says, music is not a luxury, it's a necessity. I loved it, And all these other things that they talk about, the art.
Yes.
Whether it's music, whether it's dance. The other day I read, it said, dance is the poetry of our extremities.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Poetry of our extremities. Well, things that music can't express, dance will express.
That's true.
Stuff like that.
That's true.
Another thing I saw, love is the poetry of senses.
That is beautiful. Love is the poetry of senses.
Stuff like that. I mean, there's so many ways.
So we only have 1 minute, and time flies when I'm having fun with you.
Sure.
In 1 minute, what would you like our listeners to take away from today?
Okay, that we are a miracle. We have done wonderfully past 3 million years. coming to the cave, and then to urban areas 10,000 years ago, and then 300-400 years ago, the revolutions, inventions, and discoveries. And what we are doing with art is phenomenal. Music, dance, painting, sculpture, etc., and science, the discoveries. And what I love, Dr. Zeine, is philosophy. Psychology. I love psychology, but these are all related, as Claude Bernard said. And fortunately, past 10, 20 years, with the information technology revolution, we are able to ask any question we like from the internet and from the experts, and enjoying knowing more about science, about art, about astronomy, under the water, up in the skies, it's at human relations. And what I love is the world having become one planet, one people. This internet removed the borders.
Right.
When you receive a message, you don't know whether it's from Shanghai, from Alaska, etc.
Right.
So people have become important.
Yes.
An uneducated person can write a message, send it to the world, and others benefit. So I'm very optimistic, very glad I lived to see this.
Like enjoy the miracle that we are.
That's it.
Enjoy the miracle. Thank you so much for coming to the show. I hope that you accept my invitation more and more, and be here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
And thank you so much for all of you for being with us and listening from your heart. Until next week, create a wonderful day and a week and a life for yourself and everyone around you.
You're listening to The Inner Voice with Dr. Foojan Zeine, only on LA Talk Radio.